paying your bills with music. I mean, those are great things. It's nice to have money. It's nice to pay your bills. But I heard a Josh Homme quote one time. I'm a big Queens of the Stone Age fan, and he was just like, "Man, the reward of playing music is playing music."
Welcome back to GFI Podcast, and we're here with Michael Dean Pope, all the way from Nashville. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, man! Thanks for having me.
And Michael is a prominent one of the GFI System players. Thanks for using the Specular Tempest. And,
yeah, of course, man. Thanks you guys for making great stuff. It's one of my new favorite pedals out, even still. So yeah,
we'll get deeper into it later.
All right.
So, Mike, for the listeners that haven't heard about you, can you make let's start from the beginning as an introduction. Where are you originally from, and where are you currently at?
Sure. Well, I was born in Texas. I lived there for a little while, but most of my life I grew up in Oklahoma. Kind of half my life spent in a suburb of Oklahoma City called Edmond. And then all my teenage years, I grew up in a very small backwoods prison town called McAllister. Like the biggest thing we had out there was like a Walmart or like a Lowe's home improvement store. There's no shopping malls or, no city life out there, man. And so, for me, I've just had a lot of time as a kid to sit and play guitar. Kind of grew up going to church. We were homeschooled, which was kind of a thing back then. And so, yeah, just a lot of time to play. I've been playing since I was 3, and just been obsessed with it ever since. So yeah, I grew up in backwoods Oklahoma. Played a lot of music. There wasn't really in a small town like that. It's not like a blues jam or like a country hall or anything. Like you can really go out and play with other musicians. So for me, it was church. I guess I had like a pretty traditional church upbringing. At least when I meet other people my age and talk about our experiences, there seems to be a lot of parallels there. But it's just, grew up playing in church from the time I was like 12, 13 years old. Being in a small town like that, churches are usually pretty keen on having a guitar player come in, even if they're pretty young. So kind of just hopped around different churches in town and playing music with all the people there. Some musicians would be really, really good. Most of them would be really, really bad. But it's just that thing. You're a kid and you're excited to play music, and so you'll jump at any opportunity you get. And so I did that for years, and then when I eventually graduated high school, was like, time to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Ended up moving out to Redding, California, where Bethel Church is, and that really had nothing to do with music. And it was more like, all right, well, they've got this ministry school thing that I guess I'll go to for a year, kind of figure out what I really believe, be out on my own a little bit. And then I'll move to LA or New York or something and try to start a band or, play session music. Again, I've played church music my whole life, but it's also never really been the kind of music that I just listen to day to day. I'm not one of those guys that hates on it at all, even though there is that crowd, which is unfortunate. But it was just never the kind of music I saw myself falling into, or when I had dreams of being a guitar player or whatever. It wasn't the thing. But moved to Redding, got involved with the band just because those were other musicians, so those were kind of the people that I connected with. Started playing in the school, and that eventually led to them asking, hey, will you help fill sets on Sunday mornings? Bethel has a lot of overturn. Even still years later, there's just thousands of people show up for 9 months out of the year, and then they all go home to wherever they're from. And so there's kind of this rotating pool of musicians. They've tried to kind of cut that part out a little bit and not use so many musicians from the school. So the school kind of uses its students for the musicians, and now if you see somebody on a Sunday morning or a Friday night, or, if you went to a service at church, it'd be local people who like actually live in Reading. But at the time they were using students. And so that was just kind of my in. It was like, yeah, I can help fill sets here. And then before I knew it, was like, hey, can you, play on this record, or can you, go on this tour or do that. I kind of got in right as all that stuff was starting. So yeah, there's the very abridged version of that. And then 2 years ago, moved here to Nashville. Again, not a musical thing. I realize this is Music City, USA, and obviously Nashville's where like every guitar player is. There's kind of a rule in town. You can count on the guy who's bagging your groceries at Kroger. You can guarantee that he's a better guitar player than you, because that's just how everybody in town is, man. But my wife is from here. Her entire family's here, and then my parents live in Tulsa, which is like a day's drive away. So moving here is really about family for us. And honestly, it was the last place I ever thought I'd live as a guitar player. It's like too many good players there. I don't need to go out that way. But here I am, and just trying to make it through in these weird times.
And speaking about small town, you're not spent a few years in West Lafayette, Indiana.
And oh wow!
10 years ago? And did they have Starbucks back then, man?
Walmart.
Oh, they have Walmart. That's what you do on the weekend.
And I heard that you were living in Texas before, Mike?
Yeah, I was born in Houston, and I lived there until I was 3. But one of the cool things, I guess, about where I lived in Oklahoma is it was pretty central to like Oklahoma City and Tulsa and Dallas. So I was in Texas a lot growing up. I'd drive down on the weekends with my dad or something and go see shows. But spent a little time in Houston in my very, very early years.
I am an Aggies.
Oh, okay. Awesome, man.
College Station, Gig'em.
All right. Very cool. Very cool, man.
Yeah. I and Henry, the founder of GFI, we always went to Guitar Center in Houston.
Oh man, they have a great guitar center.
Yeah,
some guitar centers are not so great, but Houston, and there's one in Dallas that's really, really great as well. But that's cool, man.
Yeah, that's where the GFI born. Well, we went to the Guitar Center and looked all the gears there. Years.
Wow, man. I was born in the same place as GFI. Man, that's pretty cool.
Okay, back to the host.
Yeah, I didn't know about that story, dude.
Yeah,
I think we should make a podcast with you, yo. That's another episode. So, Mike, how many years were you in Reading in total?
Not quite 10. 8 or 9, something like that. I went out there in 2007, 2008, and just did like their short little music school, which was just kind of over the summer. And then I went home for a year and worked a job to, save out money and to go live out there and do like the main school for a little while. And then, so I moved out to do that main school in, I think, 2009. I could be getting my years mixed up because I'm awful with all that stuff, but maybe it was 2009 I did the worship school. Either way, I was there, 8 or 9 years, went out there approximately 2009. And that was kind of when I started out there.
So with all the news and the medias, and we are so far away from the States, right? We are on the other side of the world, and just want to know your perspective about what is happening and what do you think of America today?
Oh man, that's a loaded subject.
Yeah, I know. So it's
it's really interesting. There's some really great things that I think happening in America in terms of awareness about some stuff that's been going on for a long time. That's pretty dark. And so anytime that kind of stuff comes to light and we have an opportunity to deal with it, I think that's a good thing. There's obviously, things like racism, homophobia, all these things that are awful, and so we have an opportunity to deal with it. But right now, some of the ways in which it's being dealt with isn't the best. So, I'm not really like a political person. I think change in life and in society doesn't come necessarily by passing laws. I see a lot of times where laws get passed and people just kind of find their own ways to do what they want anyway. So I think it's really up to artists and musicians and people to kind of live their lives in a way that is better, not just for themselves, but for all the people around them. That's everybody, regardless of, skin color, gender, any of that stuff. Like, we can all have disagreements, or we can all have our own opinion. I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion and their own experiences, obviously. Like, I don't understand what it's like to be gay because I've never felt those feelings, but that doesn't mean I'm going to judge somebody. Like, it's still my job is as a human being and also someone who would call themselves a Christian to love that person and treat them with all the respect and love and honor they're due. So, yeah, interesting times. I'm glad that so much of this stuff is coming up and coming out with, just the massive amounts of abuse and hurt that people have put each other through. But I'm also kind of ready to get to a point where we can all kind of put ourselves in each other's shoes a little bit better, because right now it just feels like one side versus the other, and like, well, we're right, no, we're right, no, left and right, when the truth of the matter is almost always, somewhere in between, and that's a difficult thing to arrive at, I think. But this stuff has to come out, and you kind of have to go through this kind of process to get to that point. So
yeah, it's a discussion that we have also in here. I mean, in our daily lives, right? It's happening all over the world. So it's some of these things. It's not just America, right? Like, America just has this huge platform. Like, the entire world looks to America for so many things, and certainly in the realm of entertainment and influence that way. And so in some ways, I think, we're put on the spot, but in a lot of ways we've asked for it as well. So yeah, man, it's unfortunate, but like I said, I'm hoping we can start to learn from all this. And I see signs all the time that, things are headed in a good direction. There's just stuff we got to work through and get through before we can get there. Josh, I'm sure you have questions regarding the quarantine and production.
Yeah, so about time and the quarantine, like the COVID situation nowadays, like how does it change your routine, maybe?
Yeah. For me, for the last couple of years, I've had a studio business that I ran with two friends of mine, Dan McKenzie, who's a phenomenal producer and multi-instrumentalist. And then also our friend Jimmy, who is a phenomenal engineer, great player as well. But we started a studio out in California called Thunderbird. And then it just kind of so happened, like when I moved out this way, the thing that brought my wife and I out, it was kind of always in the cards for us to move, but there were some really bad like wildfires in California. And while we were lucky and our house didn't burn down or anything, our landlords were just kind of like, hey, we're going to sell the house because the housing market there was going crazy. And so we just all kind of ended up moving at the same time. They wanted to move to Nashville just kind of for their own reasons and kind of had it planned before we did. In a sense of like actually moving, we were probably going to stay out in Redding another couple of years. So we all got out here together and we, did the studio thing for a while. Nashville's a really different scene than Redding. Redding was a lot of people coming to us, and there's not a whole. I mean, there's a few other studios in Redding, but yeah, it was just a different vibe, man. Everything out here is just hustle, 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 and there's so much going on. We ended up getting a studio space here and been working out of there, just kind of trying to figure out what the right flow is. In Redding, we had 3 rooms, so we could all work together or individually. And then, working individually here in Nashville was harder, just being in one smaller room. So when COVID hit, we were kind of in the process of, lining up some more records. We're like, man, we've been working a lot individually. Let's do some records together so that we can, keep the bills paid here. And then COVID hit, and all that work, like everybody else, just kind of evaporated. We decided we had to move out of the studio space just because the overhead would have been too much. And so now, like, we're kind of back to being in home. Half the studio is here at my place. The other half is at Dan's house, and some of it's in storage as well. And so, yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know if we'll do the joined studio thing at this point, but yeah, I'm tracking it home. To make it even crazier for me, I guess right now, my wife and I are renovating our house. So I'm living and working in this little Airbnb apartment right now. And so, like, I'm used to like sticking an amp in an ISO room and putting a microphone in front of it. And I've been running through an aux since COVID. So that's new for me. So yeah, man, my whole routine is kind of changed up right now. I work from home, and I'm using gear that I've never had to use before. And yeah, man, different times, weird times for sure. Certainly comes with its pros and its cons, but just trying to ride out the storm.
I saw your studio, the Thunderbird studio. Our friend from 440, Eduardo is telling us, like, we're going to shoot the GFI pedals and the other pedals on your studio. It's
cool.
So cool. I saw some like the vintage Butik amps. It's so cool. Yeah. Hope we will visit your studio someday after the COVID.
Yeah, man, that would be great. Part of the house renovation I'm doing is a small little studio space in there. So yeah, you might have to make the round between all three of our houses to actually see the studio, but we'll have a place where we can play some guitar pedals for sure.
That's nice.
Mike, I was wondering, during this time, how do you keep yourself, other than drinking coffee, how do you keep yourself healthy physically and mentally?
Oh man, just trying not to sit around and stew too much. Whether it's Nashville weather is crazy hot, and I'm not like a big summer guy. I'd rather be inside where it's cold, and I like the winter much better. But just trying to get out and swim, play frisbee with my dog. On the days that my wife has off, just we try to get out and do stuff. Just anything to keep me from like sitting at home like too much is kind of the thing for me right now. I mean, there is a part where like to stay especially like mentally healthy, I need to just like sit right here and play guitar for a couple hours a day or something like that. That kind of helps me keep centered. Just it's something I've had my whole life, like since I was a kid, right? Like I would just lock myself in my room and play guitar. So that's part of it too, but especially now, like having music as work, it's good to have time to like sit down and play music. That's not just like, okay, I'm working on something. Like right now I'm just sitting down and practicing or playing, having fun, and then taking time kind of away from it, whether it's getting outside or working on a house project. My wife is really into like gardening and composting right now, so I'm helping her build like a compost bin, just stuff like that,
Yeah. So regarding about the music, what is your favorite guitars?
Oh man, I kind of live in two camps with guitars. I grew up loving all the classic vintage stuff, Fender, Gibson, Gretsch, just all the normal stuff there. But when I started traveling and touring a lot, I would have trouble keeping those kind of guitars, like those vintage style, vintage spec guitars, in tune or set up properly.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went on this process of like hunting guitars. There were a lot of like custom guitar companies kind of coming out at the time, and most of them were just doing Fender copies. And I kept on, they'd call and be like, "Hey man, we like Bethel music. We want to hook you up with a guitar. Like, what can we make?" And I'd be like, "Man, I really want a Les Paul Jr." because that was my first guitar, and I just kind of wanted to go back to that. And it's like, man, it's really simple, right? Just one pickup, and like how hard can it be to keep working on the road? Like that's got to be easy. But every one of them would be like, oh man, we can't do that. Do you want a Strat? And I've just never like really been a Strat guy. So, kind of on that journey is where I met Casey from Veritas Guitars.
Yeah.
And
very great.
I loved right off the bat that he just does his own thing. Like he doesn't really do copies. He made me a gold top Les Paul guitar, which is the and even that's not like a Gibson copy, like to, as exacting as a lot of guys like to be nowadays. But he was kind of the first guy that was like, yeah, I can do that. Not just, hey, do you want a Strat? Because I can make you a Strat copy. I was like, man, I think I could probably build a Strat, order a couple parts online and screw them together and you're good. Like that's what's awesome about it. You break the neck, you just bolt a new one on. So yeah, that led to meeting Casey. And when I started playing his guitars, I noticed, I'd fly with them all over and I never had to set them up. They were just really stable. They sounded really good. I've always liked the way they kind of felt and played. He pulls from a lot of classic designs. I mean, when you look at the guitar, it's not like a Portlander, for instance. It's, definitely has its own vibe going on, but it kind of feels like a Fender in your hand with the bolt-on neck and, and all of that. But then the scale length and the kind of bridge and the Bigsby, like it feels like a Gibson with the string tension. And so, I don't know, having him pull from those familiar things, but doing them in his own way. I just thought that always was a really, really great thing, and it worked really well. So those are kind of the two camps I live in. Like in this rack, I've got a couple of his guitars, and then just a couple, vintage or vintage style guitars, and that works for me. Like the vintage stuff is really great when you pick up a Blackguard Telly when you want to, get twangy and kind of be inspired by that. Maybe that more country or more rock and roll thing. And then when I just want to create and be myself and go anywhere without having the guitar necessarily dictate what I am going to play in terms of like note choice or something, then I'll pick up one of Casey's guitars because it's like a blank slate.
For the tour preparation, back in the days, how do you prepare? Like, what is your perspective and the thought process when you're gearing up for a tour, as far as
sure.
Pedal board goes?
Okay. Well, with the pedal board, it's usually just kind of going through all the songs we're going to play and making sure I've got tones to cover it. I love having like a MIDI switcher. I love the RJM stuff because I can usually do like the MIDI clock and kind of program all the pedal changes out from something like that, right? Which is a massive help because like on tour, especially like the last probably 4 years or so, maybe longer than that, I was with Bethel Music and we were touring a lot. Like I was MDing from stage as well. So, calling shots and hollering at people on a microphone and then trying to like tap dance, way too many pedals is just normally not a recipe for success. So for me, it just kind of looked like, sitting down with the songs and just, programming them out on the switcher, going through whatever pedals, making sure I had, tones for every song. And it's really just that, if you know the material, it's just kind of getting your board set up in order to play that material. So yeah, usually, I mean, if we were playing a new record and I didn't have sounds for it, or I was creating sounds for it, it would just be kind of a longer process, maybe take a couple days. But if we're doing like a tour a ways after a record had come out and I already had the presets, it was just kind of arranging them in whatever order we were going to play and going from there. Man, technology these days is so great. It's really easy to program that stuff quickly and keep it on hand. So yeah, that was really it for me.
Josh has a question, burning question.
Yeah, everyone knows like you are one of the
prominent
or pioneer guitar for worship guitarists in the world and in the US, of course. Like, what's your secret sauce? Like, playing for ambience worship guitar, chasing the tone, and everything.
Oh man, I don't know if I have any secrets or tricks. I mean, I feel like most of the time what I do is pretty normal. Like, with delay stuff, everything depends on the song, right? And the part you're playing. So, if someone looked at my presets or any of that, or if people that have purchased them can go through and look at this, like delay was just kind of the same tape delayed setting over and over and over. I would just kind of vary the mix and the repeats per the part, per the song. And for me, like I've always been a fan of guys like Dan Lanois or The Edge, or I want delay to sound like it's a part of my playing. I've never really been the guy that turns on effects and wants them to be subtle. I don't know. I just never have connected with that. That's never made me, happy. When I turn on a pedal, I can barely hear it. And then especially like when you put it in a context with a band, like good luck hearing that tiny little bit of reverb or that tiny little bit of delay on something. Like you just don't hear it. And so, yeah, I just kind of dial things in so that I can hear them. I don't want them to overtake my playing or anything like that. Obviously that wouldn't be good. But I just want delay to kind of sound like my playing, like an extension of my playing. And in reverb, I think of reverb as like sonic glue, right? Like it can completely cover up your guitar, but it can, like, done well, it can really stick your guitar in a track in a really, really great way, especially with things like synths and cymbals and stuff like that. Like, things can get out of hand really quickly, but if you can just dial that in to where it sits in its right spot, like that reverb can really help glue your guitar into a track. So I'm just listening, every song, every part for where it feels like my guitar is just glued in there, and I can still hear what's going on. I've got plenty of clarity. I can hear the notes I'm playing, but it feels like it's just been glued into the song. And so whether I'm using like a smaller reverb, sure, there's just like the general things we all know. If you're playing like a big rhythm part, you don't want to have some huge crazy cloud reverb on it, right? If you're playing like just one note and kind of letting it ring, like that's a good time to put more reverb on it and kind of have it sound bigger, right? So general rule of thumb like that always applies. But for me, I'm just looking for where stuff feels glued in to the track, and just looking for that feeling. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just like when you hear it, it's right.
Yeah, got it. The key is the glue.
Yeah,
because sometimes I hear like guitarists use the reverb it's like overuse, overwashed, and you can hear you cannot hear the dry signal.
Yeah, and too, I mean, reverbs that have like a pre-delay control, I usually find that pretty useful, just so you can get that like initial note attack, and then the reverb can kind of swell in behind it and do its thing that way. But I mean, it's going to be different for every song, every part. There's not one thing that works every time. I think part of being a guitar player is having an idea in your head of what things are supposed to sound like, and that kind of gives you a goal to work towards, whether it's like, okay, like I need to dial this amp in, or I need to, is this pedal going to work for me or not? Like, I think we all should and do have this idea in my head of how a guitar sounds. Like when you look at a Telecaster, you kind of get a mental picture of what that's going to sound like. And so working on a song, or, dialing in something for a song, whether you've played it before or not, like it's really just the same thing. It's getting your gear to have that same sound as the mental picture in your head.
And thank you for creating the preset for the specular tempos and the synesthesia. I've tried the reverb. So cool.
Well, I mean, hats off to you guys. You made it. I just put the knobs in a certain position where I liked them.
Yeah, you definitely put these pedals on the map. So,
well, I'm happy to have helped. You guys have been really kind to me. sent me some really, really great stuff that I've just enjoyed using, man. I'm, I obviously gear is a really fun part of being a guitar player, and we're always looking for stuff that inspires us in new ways and feels fresh. That's really, I found it because, in no fault to the Strymon stuff, I just played it so long that I was like, I need to hear something new and something fresh. And that Specular Tempest pedal, like, checked all the same boxes. Like it yep, I need it to do this, 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 and this. It can do all of those things, but it just had to doing a fresh sound for me. So yeah, thanks to you guys for making it, because it's awesome, man.
So Mike, you have this online consultation session, yeah?
Yeah.
And what do you have any most common question that people ask you? What is the most common questions that they ask you?
So with the consults, it's kind of like a one-off guitar lesson, really. I mean, I remember what it's like to be younger and to look at somebody either at church or on a stage somewhere. And when social media first became a thing, I remember I'd send people messages on MySpace like, hey, how'd you get that sound? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? And it always made me feel really, really good when somebody would write back and tell me. So the consults and those things just kind of started from that place. Like, people would just start asking questions. Hey, would you do on this Bethel music record or that? And so I would just try to make a point to get back with them and let them know. Hopefully, it's an answer or it's a feeling that is positive for them. And so, I think these days people usually want to know something like that, like, hey, what did you do on this Bethel music record or that kind of thing. But a lot of it now is also in regard to writing. I feel like I've gotten a lot of questions like, how do you write guitar parts, or how do you do you have any go-tos or things like that when you're writing? Seems to be what's on people's mind during COVID. One of the upsides to all this is I've had a lot of time to do more of these consults and lessons with people, and that seems to come up a lot.
So I'd like to touch base regarding the music business.
Okay.
And for the younger players, and let's say as a band members or songwriters or session players, what is your advice for them?
Oh man, just find what you love and stick with it. Success is not about how much money you're making. It's not about paying your bills with music. Those are great things. It's nice to have money. It's nice to pay your bills. But I heard a Josh Homme quote one time. I'm a big Queens of the Stone Age fan, and he was just like, "Man, the reward of playing music is playing music." And that hit me hard, because anybody that works in music, it's like we all go through this phase where like you get that honeymoon phase at the beginning where it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I'm just having all this fun. And then it becomes work and you get a little jaded and you're like, well, that gig doesn't pay enough money, so I can't make time for that. Or, you know what I mean? Like every working musician goes through that phase. And so for myself, having gone through both of those phases and, different times in my life, man, when I heard that quote, it just hit me hard. And I was like, man, that's the thing. And that's where I really fight to stay there now. Like I don't say yes or no to a session based on, the amount of money it pays or anything like that. I think that's if you look at those kind of things and you base it on that, that's how you get burned out really, really fast. So, to anybody else who wants to do this, find what you love, do what you love, stick to it. Don't let anybody, shame you for it. Oh, church music is stupid. I've heard that so many times from so many people. There's YouTube videos about how dumb and how, cookie cutter worship music can be. And there are points with all that stuff that I agree with. Yeah, I've been in songwriting sessions where it's all right, well, these are the songs that are successful, so we need our song to sound like that. But it's that kind of stuff is prevalent in all music. You're always going to have people who are in it for money or fame or whatever. There's people all around that are going to be in it for the wrong reasons. So you make sure you're in it for the right reasons, and that's the way to stay happy and enjoy doing it. And if it's something you really want to do, just work hard at it. It's, if you want to be good at anything, work hard and stick to it, and don't give up. Don't be afraid to get a normal job in the meantime, if that's what it takes. If you really love something, you'll do whatever it takes to do that thing. So find what you love and stick to it. And I think that's the best recipe for happiness or success, or whatever you're looking for.
Does it in your opinion, does it really necessary for, or maybe you can share experience with working with managers or agents in that regards? When do you think an artist needs to have the supporting system, quote unquote?
Well, I've always been like a session guy and kind of a hired gun, and typically guys like me don't have management or anything like that. I think that can be a tricky thing. Having artist friends who have had mixed experiences with artists and management and record labels and things. At the end of the day, like, you have to remember, like, those guys are all business guys, and so if you can find a guy who you really trust and is really in it to help you out, I think that can be great things. Like, as artistic people, we're kind of naturally bad at business and managing money and all those kinds of things. Or just even these days, there's a lot of artists that are really bad at social media, and so now you have social media teams and all these things, right? So I think it just comes down to what you need. Do I think you need those things to be successful? No, there's so many great independent bands and artists that do everything themselves these days. But then for other artists, managers and teams and record labels are helpful for people. So, I think with that, you just have to do your best to know what you're getting into. Read the fine print in the contract before you sign it. All those kinds of things. But I've seen them be helpful and hurtful at the same time. So I couldn't really say, like, yeah, do this or definitely don't do this. It kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, tell us about your new band, the Carousel. I listened to it and it's really good.
Thanks, man. I don't know if I'd call it a band. We're not booking shows, or we're not even really working on a second record. Carousel started with Bobby Strand and I on tour. The thing that nobody tells you about tour, there's a lot of downtime. You get really, really bored, especially like, a show will be marketed for like, hey, we're playing in Chicago this weekend, but really we're playing like 45 minutes outside of Chicago, right? And so it's not like we get to go spend the whole day in some crazy town every day. Like there's a lot of days, more often than not, with downtime. And so, man, we just were like, you know what? Like, we write enough church music. We don't, like, that doesn't really sound fun right now. Let's just like start coming up with riffs and songs and parts. And so it just started like that. Just Bobby and I messing around. And then Joel Volk, one of our drummers and a good friend, started throwing drums on stuff, and we would just kind of jam stuff in sound check, or, whenever stagehands and managers and stuff weren't yelling at us, we just messed around with stuff on tour, and then eventually got home and we're like, let's make a record. It would just be fun, and it took years to finish it and get it out over various things. But yeah, that was it. It was just Bobby, Joe, and I, and then a singer, Paul Arend, who's a really, really talented producer and songwriter, and then Bobby's brother Michael played bass on it, and so, man, yeah, it was just a fun project. I don't know if we'll ever do another one, or if we'll ever book a tour. Like, we kind of live all over now. Like, I'm here in Nashville, and Joe's in Reading still, and Bobby and I think his brother too now are in LA. Paul's in LA. So yeah, we're kind of all over the place. But who knows? I mean, anything could happen. But in the meantime, yeah, there's a record for anybody who wants to listen. there's no plan. We just kind of sat down and we're like, well, this sounds fun.
Yeah, I'm a fan and I'm expecting for more albums.
All right, man. Well, we'll keep it, keep it on our radar. If I would imagine if enough people showed interest in it, we would do something again on some level. But yeah, man, thanks for the encouraging words, man. It's awesome.
So this anything that we can go on and on, by the way, any music that you're gonna release anytime soon on any particular projects that you're highlighting soon?
Most of the stuff I've worked on in the past few months has been like independent artist stuff. So I'm actually not sure when stuff is coming out. Like COVID's been kind of strange on that. It's just been like, like, hey man, will you play on the song? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I send it off and like, that's all you hear. So, I don't have, some big list of stuff right now. Hopefully that changes after COVID, but, it's just kind of been mostly like booking lessons and consults with people, and then when session stuff pops up, I'll play on it and then send it back. I think as the fall gets a little closer, I've got some stuff in the fall that I'll be working on. So maybe then I'll be like, yeah, check out so and so or this record or that. But yeah, right now it's just been a lot of like one-off things that like send it away and then like you don't hear back. So it's like, well, okay, I hope somebody listens to it or I hope somebody likes it.
So where can we find your online session? Where can we discover you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on redoing the website right now. So I don't have a website, but just through Instagram. If anyone that wants to book a session, if you've got a song you want me to play on, that's a good way to reach out. If you want to book a online consult and chat guitars for an hour, and if you feel there's something I can teach you or help you with, just through Instagram right now seems to be the way that's working the most.
It's the new WhatsApp or it's the new email, I suppose.
Yeah, man. That's it.
After all, that's how we discovered you, right? We communicated with you, right, Josh?
Yep.
Cool. Hey,
Social
Mike.
media is a crazy thing these days, man. It's so much, and I'm really bad at it, but man, social media is so much more of like a marketing tool and all of that stuff than I ever thought it would be. We're a far cry from just like posting photos of our lunch. You're like, this is what I'm eating today.
Are you gonna go into TikTok by any chance?
Oh no, no, I stay far away from anything that involves
cheerleader dance.
No, for the sake of everybody else out there, like I won't. I want to provide like pleasing, audible, things for people. You don't want to see me dance. That's not in my wheelhouse, so I stay far away from it.
Hey man, Mike, it has been a great time, and thank you for spending your time with us and sharing your thoughts to our listeners. We appreciate it much. Anytime you're dropping by here post-COVID, be in the know that you have a family here, and we have a durian waiting for you here. And these guys are a bunch of crazy guys, and that can take you around for a nice ride here.
Yeah, I would love for this COVID stuff to go away and to travel again, man. I'm almost to that point where I'm not quite there yet, but I almost miss touring and that. It's been nice to just sit home, but yeah, thanks for doing this, guys. It's good to meet you and finally put faces behind these pedals that I've been enjoying for the past couple of years. So that's great. And yeah, hopefully we all get to meet up in person. I'd love to go out that way, or if we all end up at a NAMM show or something.
Yeah, man.
Definitely hang out and find some food and some drinks and get some hangs on. So yeah, thanks guys.
Coffee.
Oh yeah, coffee always, man. I pretty much don't stop drinking coffee at this point, so that's just kind of a given.
Yeah.
Okay, let's send him the Luwak coffee.
Have you tried this poop coffee?
Oh, I've heard of this. Yeah. I've heard of it. Yeah, it's like a monkey or a cat or something, right?
It's a cat. Yeah.
Oh man.
And
I don't know about that one, but I'll try anything once.
It's really good though.
Okay.
All right, man. Thanks for having us, and stay safe, stay healthy, and hello to your family.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.